Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new section where we're going to be creating a Velocity plugin. Now this is a big step, so at this point you've created hopefully a successful paper plugin on a normal Minecraft server, and now it's going to get a little bit more complex. So this section's not going to be huge, because actually there's not much to this. What I'm going to be doing in this video is explaining Velocity and what it is and how proxies or networks work together and what we're going to be creating. And we'll actually turn on our first Velocity network with the Minecraft server, and we will create our first Velocity plugin. Also in this video, it'll just be a simple console message, but it's going to be a big milestone for us, because after that, throughout the rest of this section, we can tackle things like commands and events, and then go on to more complicated things like tasks and schedulers, or using plugin APIs, because all of this stuff is slightly different from paper to Velocity. So before we actually start with this section, I of course have to explain what Velocity is and how the proxy architecture looks. And so if you already understand what you're actually going to make in this section and how to use it, then I'd probably skip forward a few minutes. But otherwise, this might be useful information. So before I get too deep into the technical detail, I think the best way is to visualize it. So I'm going to go ahead and join the most popular Minecraft network. So that's Hypixel. At the time of recording, I'm going to go and join the server. And you'll see here that I've been put in a random lobby server. Now what I can do is I can go to the lobby selector here, and I can choose any of these lobbies to join, just like that, and I'll be teleported to that lobby, just like that. Now I can also go ahead and join any game. So let's say I join that game, I've now been teleported to a game lobby. And then if I go ahead and join an actual game, like this, I've been teleported to yet another server. So what's happening there? Every time I went to a different lobby or to a game, or back to a lobby, or basically every time you've seen that loading screen flash up, I was actually switching from one entire Minecraft server to another. So why is that? Why can't we just have everything hosted on one Minecraft server? The reason is because Minecraft servers are very inefficient by nature, just the way they were coded, and so they do have kind of a soft player cap on when it starts to get laggy and when it's not manageable anymore. And so the solution to this is to actually host a network of different servers, and that's exactly what Hypixel was just there. So all of those servers, while Hypixel don't actually use paper, all of those servers could have been paper servers individually. And of course you can whack on your paper plugin that you've been making throughout this whole course on any of those servers just like normal. So what Velocity is a proxy that connects all those servers together. So I'm going to pop up a graphic now just to kind of illustrate this. So usually when you join a Minecraft server, that server handles all of the authentication. It sends a message off to Mojang's authentication servers to say, hey, can I join? Do I actually own this account? Make sure I'm not impersonating somebody. And then Mojang says yes or no. And in fact, you'll notice that this happens because if you've been playing this game a while, you might see occasionally that the Mojang authentication servers are down, and then you can't actually join a Minecraft server. So what Velocity does is it actually takes ownership of all of that, and essentially makes itself the gateway into your network. You could see when I was switching between servers there, how absolutely rapid it was to go from one server to the other. And that's because what you do is you authenticate yourself into the network. Think of Velocity as the gatekeeper. It's the door that you have to get through. Velocity will talk to Mojang and say, can this guy join? And then once you're in that network, you have free reign. You can go to any server you want, and you can have a smooth and silky experience. So what is it that we're actually making then? So we know you can have a bunch of different Minecraft servers, and you have Velocity, which is the proxy or network. We'll be using proxy and network interchangeably, but Velocity is the proxy which connects all those different servers together. So what are we making in this section? Well, we're making a Velocity plugin. So just like paper is a Minecraft server and you make a paper plugin, Velocity is a proxy, and so we're making a Velocity plugin. Now the reason this section isn't massive, like all the paper stuff, is because if you think about it, by nature, there's not much a proxy can actually do. The proxy only connects those servers together. Those servers are still responsible for having paper plugins on them which control everything from GUIs to boss bars to chat messages to entities, chunks, the world, players, and all of that stuff. The proxy is really only responsible for a few things, so it handles connections. It handles things like how the server looks in the server list, so say the MOTD and the player count. And you can also have proxy-wide commands, so that'll be we can create a command inside of Velocity plugin which will be on every Minecraft server. So there's not loads of things you can do inside of a proxy, and that's why we don't have loads of videos in this section. but we are pretty much going to be covering everything that you can do inside of a Velocity plugin. So who made Velocity? How do we know it's any good? Well, the paper team actually made Velocity, and that's why it's such a good technology for this course, because of course this is a paper course. And what happened was, you may have heard of a proxy called Bungee Cords, and that was made by the Spigot team. And in the same way that paper built on top of Spigot, they did the same, but they actually created something called Waterfall. And that was a better proxy, but they realized after a while that actually it wasn't good enough. They needed an implementation from the ground up, written with some actual brain cells rubbing together, and thus Velocity was born. So Velocity is now the modern standard for connecting Minecraft servers together to create networks, and it is agreed upon by everybody in the community that it's the most efficient way to do it, it's the most performant, and also, most importantly, it is the most secure. So I hope that's helped you understand the architecture and actually the role that Velocity plays as a proxy, and the role that we play as the author of a proxy plugin. So just like we did at the very start of the course with the paper stuff, we're going to go ahead and clone a beautiful fancy template that I've created in advance, which has all of the stuff that you need on to just create a very base Velocity plugin. So what you want to do is head to this repository. Now, of course, this is, as always, linked alongside this video, so you can just go grab the link and head to this repository. And so this is a public GitHub repository, and you can see inside of here, if I head to the main class, you'll see the syntax is a little bit different from how a paper plugin might look. But don't worry, we'll go through it all soon. And then in the build.gradle.kts, because of course we're using Gradle, as always, you'll see we have the Velocity import. Of course, we have Kotlin because this is a Kotlin course. And would you believe it? Now, I'm going to sound like a real nerd here, but this is the best news you'll hear all week. So when you, of course, are testing your paper plugin, you know that you have this lovely little button up here to run your server from inside of your IDE from this folder. So you don't have to go and set one up and then start it in a different terminal. It's all very messy. So this is a beautiful solution for paper, right? The same guy who made this Gradle plugin actually has one called Run Velocity, and it works in the exact same way. So we can literally have that same button for our Velocity plugin, which is incredible. And of course, I've included that inside this template, so it's really important that you clone this template. And I'll show you how to do that now. So all you need to do is take the URL, which, as I say, is attached alongside this video, and then head to your IntelliJ IDE. Now, it doesn't matter where you are because we're going to create a brand new project. So head up here, and then new, and then project from version control. Make sure that version control is set to Git, of course, because we're pulling from GitHub. And then just go ahead and pop in the URL there. You don't need to append anything, nothing fancy, just put the URL in there and it'll know what to do. So for the directory, this is entirely up to you what you want to call it. I'm going to go ahead and call mine Velocity Test Plugin. Now, look, that doesn't make a difference, it's just how it appears up here in the project tree pretty much. So call it whatever you want, but I think I like that for me. Now, if you do have knowledge of GitHub, then let me just say this to you. If you want to fork my repository and then clone your fork so that you can push your own changes to your repository, then feel free. But otherwise, to everybody else, just clone mine because we're not actually going to be pushing any changes. We're just learning how to make a Velocity plugin. So once you've done this, just go ahead and hit clone. And it'll take a few seconds. I'll open it in this window. And there we go. So, as I say, it'll refresh a couple times and you'll lose your place and you might need to give it a few yeses and enable a few things. But otherwise, if we head to the main class here, you should see after a few moments it should have cloned successfully. Okay, so like at the beginning of every paper video, I always start with our nice override fun on enable so we can actually do something when the plugin starts. That is the exact same as what you're looking at here, just for a Velocity plugin. Now, as you can see, Velocity is quite heavy on the annotations. They quite like them. Of course, these being annotations, everything that starts with an @ And so let me go through what you're looking at here. So first things first, you have all the information about the plugin which you can set. Now, for all intents and purposes, this is essentially the plugin.yml that you have on a Spigot or paper plugin. So I've already got here the 3 that are absolutely imperative, as in your plugin won't start without them, and that is the ID. Now the convention for this, according to the documentation, is just as I've written it, so fully lowercase, no spaces. And that's just so other plugins can recognize your plugin, basically. And then a nice readable name, and that will appear, for example, in the plugins command. And then also the version, which is linked to this file here. And you can see all that does is pulls the version from right here. So this is what's going to appear in your version for your plugin. So you can change it there and that'll update all across the project. All right, great. So what about other things? I said it's like a plugin.yml, right? So does that mean you can add a description, an author? Well, of course you can. You'll see also linked alongside this video is the Velocity documentation, which shows all of the different things that you can link in that section. So as I say, I've set the required ones, but you can see you can also override certain things. So you can see they've got the ones I've got here. You can also set the version. Now, a lot of these are set by default, and you can also see the optional ones here. You can add the author, website description, etc. So just append them like normal on here, and that's about it. So that's linked alongside this video if you want to add some more things, but these are the 3 that you need to actually get the plugin running. All right, so what's the rest of this class? Well, this subscribe function is just like an event. It's just the on-enable pretty much that we have in Paper. So when the proxy starts for the first time, all the code inside this function will run, and that's where we're going to put a nice little console message saying our plugin has started. So how are we going to send that console message? Well, Velocity, kind of like Paper nowadays, doesn't like the use of print line, which of course is what we would use when we're just writing regular Kotlin. They want you to use their centralized logger. Now, helpfully, they provide us this logger by injecting it into our constructor when they create an instance of our main class. So they'll pass through that logger. So we now have access to that. And so what we can do is logger dot, and then you can choose any of these to show how to represent your message in console. So for example, info will be like quite a neutral format. Warn might be more worrying, and an error might be not a nice read in the console. So it just changes the format, just visual stuff. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and use info, and I will say, pop in a string here and just say, our test plugin has started. Okay, that's awesome. And so now we know that going forward, we're going to do everything that we want to do when the proxy starts inside of this code. And of course, just like always, we can make new classes, and we'll go through how to add commands and events and all that stuff in the coming videos. This really isn't rocket science, it's just a slightly different API, that's all. Okay, so thanks to the template that I've made, that was the absolute base of everything, and you've just put in a nice console message, so hopefully, when we actually run the Velocity server for the first time, we'll see that our plugin has started. So how do we run it? Well, of course, we're going to do it in the exact same way that we run our Paper server with that amazing feature that we've got in here. So head to your Gradle on the right. It won't be up top yet because we have to run it once for it to go there. So head to tasks, run Velocity, and then just go ahead and hit run Velocity, and you'll see it's up there now, and we can use this little green button every time to start the Velocity server. So it'll take a little bit longer on first run because nothing's cached, needs to make everything, and you'll see in a few seconds we'll have a little run folder appear over here, which will represent the Velocity server. So let's take a look at our console. Of course, the good news is that we can see our test plugin has started. So firstly, congratulations guys, you've made your first Velocity plugin. How awesome is that? And now nothing can stop us. We can add anything in the coming videos now. The hard part's out the way. Now it's just about learning the API. And you'll also see here it says listening on 25565. Now we know that's the default port for a Minecraft server. And so the reason it's listening on the default port for a Minecraft server is because, of course, as we've discussed, this is a proxy, meaning it connects all the servers together, meaning it is the gateway to anybody trying to join the network. And so when you now try and join localhost now, so say if I go and do that, so I'll go ahead and join 0. Now I won't be able to get in because we have no server yet, but you can see that routed us straight to the Velocity network, which is great. And you'll also see that a run folder has just appeared. So if we take a look at this, we can see the structure of a Velocity server. Now we do have a separate video on creating a Velocity server outside of your IDE because of course this is only for development purposes, but you will actually need to know how to create a Velocity server without this beautiful run Velocity feature that we've got. But the server is going to have the exact same structure. So we have velocity.toml, which is essentially YAML, but just a better version of it. You've got all the things you can configure here. So for example, you have the MOTD there, you have the max players. And so it's interesting. You can see these things that previously the server would control. I mean, earlier on in this course, we actually have a video where we show with the serverless ping event how to change the MOTD and the max players and so on a Paper plugin. Actually, now the Paper plugin has no say in that anymore. Everything public facing is now controlled by the proxy. And so that's where you could configure these things. And then of course in production, you would pop in your plugin jar in the plugins folder. And then we just have logs and some language stuff. Nothing exciting there. So that's great. So we've actually got our velocity network turned on and we have the console working, which is amazing. Now, I'm not quite ready to end the video yet because I consider it quite important that we actually get this network set up so that we can join it. There's no point having a network if you're not able to join it, of course. So let's think in our head, what are the steps to do that? Well, we need to connect Minecraft servers to the proxy. So how would we do that? Well, to be honest, it's actually fairly simple. So the first thing we're going to have to do is we'll start with the velocity stuff first. So we'll head to the configuration file, and then we're going to head down to the section that is annotated servers right here. And so you can see it says configure your servers here. Each key represents a server's name. So when you run a command to join a server, that's what the name would be. And the value represents the IP address of the server to connect to. Now, of course, this is just your local IP address. So unless you really know what you're doing here, don't change this, because it probably doesn't do what you think it does. So that's your local IP address, and then of course the port. And then we'll also have to change the try. Now, this is just a list in order of where you should be sent when you join the network. So let's think what servers we want. Why don't we go ahead and do a lobby, and let's say we'll do game to represent a game server. So I'll delete that line. I just used Control X there, by the way. And we can keep the try there for lobby like that. And we'll not include game. You don't have to include them all, because if somebody can't join lobby, we probably don't want them to join the game server because there could be an active game running or something like that. Now, of course, we're not actually putting anything on these servers, but let's try and simulate this as close as we can to reality. And then what we're going to do in a second is we're going to set up our separate paper Minecraft servers, just like completely normal, except the one thing we're going to change is the actual port. And of course, these need to be consistent with what we have here. So let's say we know that Velocity is listening on 255.65 because that's the default Minecraft port. So I'm going to say the lobby is on 255.66 and I'll say the game is on 255.67. Okay, so now my only job, and it's super simple, is I need to create two Minecraft servers where the ports are set to 255.66 and 255.67. And then when we join our Velocity network, it'll route us to those servers and it'll handle all the authentication and all that good stuff. So I'm now going to go ahead and set up a couple paper servers, and this is just something you might want to have in the background while you're developing here. We don't need to restart them every time we restart the network, but if you do want to join the network, then you will need one on, because remember, the proxy Velocity isn't a Minecraft server. It just connects them, so we actually need some Minecraft servers also. Now, we do have several videos on how to create paper servers, so I'm not going to explain it to you like you're 5, and also it's very likely you've seen a lot of these videos anyhow, so I'm just going to go ahead and create the servers like normal, and I'll show you exactly what you need to change in order to make Velocity listen to them. So I'm going to go ahead and head to my desktop, and I'm going to go and create two servers, of course, lobby and game. Call these whatever you want, it does not make a difference. The only thing that needs to match is the port. So we'll make this server as normal, nothing fancy here. So I'm going to head to the MCUtils server jars website, which is of course linked alongside this video, and then head into the server jars util. And you can see here, it'll of course offer you to download the latest paper jar. So go ahead and download whatever version you fancy and just call it something like paper.jar. And you'll see mine has appeared on my desktop. There you go. Okay, so we'll just use one folder for now, and then we'll copy and paste it into the other folder because we have quite a few things to change. So I'll move the paper.jar inside of there. And then just to speed up, I'm going to head into MCUtils, and we actually have another util where you can create a start.bat file. So under server jar name, because ours is paper, I'm going to whack in there paper. Set the RAM to 4 gig, should be fine for a small little server. And then I'll keep the flag as ACARS flags, which are just the most optimized modern flags for a paper server. And then if I just go ahead and hit download, or you can copy it yourself, you see there, mine has downloaded. So I see it on my desktop, I'll go ahead and whack that in there, and I shall start up the server. Now you may want to take a minute just to, if you maybe want to set up more servers than I do, or you want to be a bit more aesthetic about it, then feel free. Me personally, I just want to get these ports changed and whatever other settings we need to do, just so we can get our Velocity stuff running, because that is the purpose of this video. So, of course, the stumbling block we always hit with Minecraft servers. Let's go ahead and agree to the EULA, which of course we have all read several times, a thrilling read once again. Let's go ahead and save that file. And there we go. So we're going to go ahead and start up the server again. Now that's because we need a couple files to generate where we're going to change a couple things. And so once the server has fully started, we're going to have all the files we need to change what we need to change. Okay, excellent. So let's start with the server.properties stuff. Now, everything I'm about to show you, you're going to need to change for every server that you want to add to Velocity. And we do have a separate video on creating all of this in far more detail, so if you get stuck, I recommend that. But anyhow, so server.properties, I'm going to right click, edit in Notepad, and then we're going to change a couple things just here. So of course, the first thing we need to change, you guessed it, is the server port. So find that setting and change server port to whatever you set it to. So I'm in the lobby here, so I'm changing it to 25566. And then once we copy over these files to the game, I'll change that one to 25567. So make sure to do that according to what we put into our settings just here. So lobby 25566, game 25567. Okay, awesome. And then the next thing we're going to have to do is go ahead and find Control F, online mode, and set that to false. Now, online mode, it's a bit misleading, the name. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But what it really does is determine whether or not the server handles authentication. So if you set online mode to false, the server will not authenticate players. Now, of course, that's massively dangerous if you don't put the server behind a proxy, which we are today, and that proxy will authenticate players. But if you didn't do this safely, then anybody will be able to join as anybody. You could literally log in with my account to that server. It sounds crazy, but that's what happens when you disable authentication. So there you go. So make sure to do those two things, server port and online mode equals false. Okay, save that. And then we just have one or two more things to change. So what we're going to do is head into the config folder. I'm going to go ahead and open up the paper.global.yml. There's one or two things in here that we just need to modify. So we're going to head down to proxies, and then you'll see we have velocity here. So we're going to hit enabled, true. Now what we're going to put in the secret, now have a guess, we seen a secret file a bit earlier, didn't we, inside of the proxy run folder. So let's go ahead and take a look. And here you go. So we have the forwarding secret. So take your forwarding secret from here, and we're going to go ahead and pop that just in there like that. And we'll keep online mode to true because Velocity will be doing the authentication. And as long as that secret matches, you will have no issues with this. Okay, and so in order to actually make that player forwarding feature work, which is just a really fancy way of saying we securely authenticate the players, then we need to quickly change one thing in the velocity.toml, the TOML file. We're going to go down to, let's just Control F it, forwarding. There we go. So what we want to set this to is modern, not non. And as you can see, the modern forwards a player's IP and UIDs as part of the login process using Velocity's native forwarding. So if, God forbid, you're using a version lower than 1.13, then you can check out the other ones, but in theory, that would not be ideal. But anyway, go ahead and save that. And so what that's going to do is now, it's going to use that little secret that we've set now on both the proxy and the servers to make sure that those are securely talking to each other. And that's just one of the benefits over Bungee Code. You know, Bungee Code might have a big market share in the proxy field, but it's certainly not as secure as that. Okay, so I've just set the lobby to 25566. So just before we go ahead and copy those files across, let's remove these forced hosts because that's just subdomains that we don't need. And also, that's kind of something for production, not something we do locally. And I will just say, if you leave these in the current format, the server will not start. These have to be actually valid. So we'll go ahead and remove that. Okay, so the velocity.toml file is done now. So we're just going to go ahead and now finish our second server by literally just copy and pasting all the files. And all we need to change now is the port because we know we've got all the valid files here. So I'm going to copy paste this, pop that inside of the game lobby. We're going to head to the server.properties. I'm going to edit in Notepad. I'm going to find that port, 25567. I'm going to go ahead and save that up. And guys, believe it or not, if we go ahead and start both of these servers, and we go ahead and start our Velocity server, which I shall do with this nice little button that has appeared here now, then actually this should work. We should be able to join. Our plugin's still working, which is great. It hasn't broken in the past 10 minutes. We should now actually be able to join our server. So remember, when we join localhost here, we're going to be connecting to Velocity, and Velocity is going to do the authentication, and then route us to the lobby server, and then we'll be able to switch to the game server. Okay, so we'll make sure both those servers turned on, which it looks like they did. So I'll go ahead now and join the server. And there you go, guys. We are now in a Velocity server. So you can see we've joined the lobby server. That was the one on the left. How cool is that? This is awesome. And if I go into F3, you can see we are a paper Velocity server. Fancy. So now if I go ahead and write /server, you can see available servers, game or lobby. You can see lobby has 1 player online. That's me. You can see game has 0 players online. I've went ahead and connected to game, and guys, that has just routed me to a completely different Minecraft server. And there you go. So I can switch back and forth. And guys, about 30 minutes ago, I showed you Hypixel and how they were doing it. We are doing it the exact same way, just with significantly less servers, but the tech is all there. So there you go. It's been a bit of a long video, but this was really important to set the scene for these upcoming videos, because we're going to tackle some concepts like commands and events, and honestly, if I do all of that in the console, you guys are going to hate me and you're going to get bored really quick. We need an actual server to be connected to the network, so that's why we took that extra 10 minutes at the end there to set that up. But otherwise, the main accomplishment of this video was, of course, you got your Velocity plugin started, which is amazing. And so we can now go ahead and power through the rest of this section. So I know Velocity can be a little bit tricky and a little bit scary, so if you need any assistance, the Discord server is your friend, and of course we are there to help, so please come and join it. I will be happy to help you get set up. So thank you so much for watching, guys, and I hope to see you in the next video.